Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another Hormonology tip. I'm Gabrielle Lichterman, founder of Hormonology, creator of the Hormone Horoscope apps and the Female Forecaster app, which I always forget to mention. And I am also the author, something I never forget to mention, of 28 Days, What Your Cycle Reveals about your moods, health, and potential. You can get it at Amazon, all around the world, and it's in paperback and ebook. So, today. Today, I want to talk about money. Money is an interesting topic to me. I mean, it impacts everybody. We all have to have it, whether we want to or not, and we all spend it, whether we want to or not. And it's really important for anyone with a menstrual cycle to understand how your hormonal effects throughout your cycle impact how you spend or save money. Now, before I start, I want to kind of give you a little bit of I don't know. I'd like to liken money to food. I'd like to explain how I see money, so that it kind of informs the rest of the video, so you understand why I'm talking about money the way I am. So, you know how when you go through your cycle and there are some days when you have this huge appetite and you just want to eat, and some days you don't want to eat at all, you have no appetite, or maybe you're concerned about, your weight or your health, so you don't want to eat because of that. Or how some days you have cravings for certain foods. Maybe you have a craving for ice cream and chips, or maybe you're craving something new and exciting, getting out of dull ruts. Well, money is the same way. There are days in your cycle when you're going to feel like splurging, spending tons of money. And then there are days when you're going to feel like saving your money. Then there are going to be days when you feel like spending your money on specific goods and services. And then that desire for those specific goods and services changes dramatically on another day. So, money to me is a lot like food. We get the urge to eat or not eat. We get the urge to save money or not, or spend money. And we get the urge to eat specific foods, just like we get the urge to spend on specific goods and services. Now, if you're a longtime Hormonology fan, the following statement won't be too surprising. The reason for these changes between how much we eat or how much we spend and what we're eating and what we're spending on comes down to hormones. Specifically, hormone fluctuations in your cycle. As estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone rise and fall, they have different effects on us. So that leads us to now. Why I'm talking to you about money today, because I want to explain to you how your hormones impact how much you spend, how much you save, and what you're spending your money on. Why is this important? Well, a couple of good reasons. One is just so you understand yourself better. I mean, how many times have you gone to a store and just splurged on crazy stuff that you didn't even plan to spend on? Or how many times have you bought a gift for somebody that was way out of your price range and you wouldn't have bought for yourself? Like, sometimes you just don't understand why you're doing something that you just feel suddenly compelled to do. Another reason it's really important to know how your hormones impact your spending and saving habits is because by knowing this, you can override these hormonal effects when necessary. For instance, if you're in a phase where you're spending a lot and you don't have any money in the bank, you can say, look, I know this is due to hormonal effects. I'm going to put myself on a budget. I'm going to allow myself a small splurge so I can enjoy it, but I won't go crazy. Or alternatively, say you're in a phase of your cycle when you feel anxious about money and you want to save, but it's smarter to spend. For example, say you're redoing your house, you're doing home improvements, and you have to choose between paints. So there's a can of paint that's cheap. There's a can of paint that's a little bit more money, but it's more durable. It lasts longer. You can clean messes off of it. Well, in that instance, it's better to override your hormonal effect, your hormonal impulse to save, and say, look, it's a better investment if I spend more money. So that's why it's really important to know how your hormones impact you all cycle long in every facet of your life so that you can understand yourself better and you can take advantage of these hormonal effects or override them when necessary. It gives you a lot more control. So let's go on to how hormones are impacting your money, because that's really why you're here, right? Okay, so for today's video, we're going to separate the menstrual cycle into two halves. The first half is first day of your period through ovulation. Second half is ovulation through the day before your next period. Super duper easy. During the first half of your cycle, generally speaking, you tend to spend more money. I mean, you really splash out. The closer you get to ovulation, the more you are spending, as a matter of fact. And during the second half of your cycle, the day after ovulation through the day before your next period, you're saving more money, generally speaking. You're more anxious about your finances. You really want to look for ways to just conserve your cash. So during the first half, you're splashing out, you're spending more. During the second half, you're trying to conserve your money. Now let's drill down and talk about why these changes occur and what I find really interesting, the goods and services that you're spending your money on. This research to me is amazing. There's so many studies that show us how our hormones impact our spending and saving, and I'm fascinated by each and every one of them. I hope that researchers do even more research about how our hormones impact our spending and saving, because I find this particular topic very interesting. And let's face it, money impacts us every single day, so we really should know this information. Okay, so let's go back to the first half of our cycle. First half of our cycle, we're spending. We're spending like it's our job. So why is that? Well, estrogen is rising throughout every day of the first half of your cycle. And as it does that, it has several effects. It boosts your mood. It boosts your optimism. It boosts your excitement and enthusiasm. So all of these things make you feel more secure about your finances. You don't mind splashing out a lot of cash because in your mind, well, I'll just figure out how to cover the bills somehow. Maybe, I'll get a windfall sometime down the line. I'll win a scratch-off lottery ticket, or, I'll get another gig, but it's going to be okay. I will be able to cover this huge bill somehow. I'm not even going to think about the bill. I'm not even going to look at the price tags because I feel good. I feel optimistic. I feel confident. And the other thing is, you're more easily persuaded by peppy salespeople. So you're more easily excited, more easily enthusiastic. So if there's a salesperson or a service provider who's also peppy and feeding that enthusiasm and excitement, it makes you even more excited about spending. Okay, so here's another reason that rising estrogen is prompting you to spend. As estrogen rises, when you spend cash on yourself, it triggers a surge of feel-good chemicals in the brain, like dopamine, that give you a rewarding sensation. So when you buy something for yourself, it feels good. It physically feels good. So you're getting this positive reinforcement. So you're feeling like, okay, I can cover the bill, because you're optimistic, and you're also getting this spurt of, you did a good job. You bought something for yourself. You treated yourself. That's really good. You're getting this rewarding sensation. So these two things really egg you on, and you're also more impulsive. So you're excited. You're optimistic. You're getting this spurt of dopamine and other rewarding brain chemicals that make you feel good when you spend. So all this, reinforces, go ahead and splash out. But that's not the only reason you're splashing out a lot of cash during the first half of your cycle, especially during your week leading up to and including ovulation. Research has discovered that you're more likely to purchase items with a big price tag. You're more likely to purchase luxury items, things that give you cachet, that make a really good impression on other people. And researchers believe that this is because your hormones want you to compete with other women for potential mates. And one way to compete is by getting luxury items that make you stand out in a crowd. So this could be name brand items, limited edition items, things that have cachet, that boost your social standing. So you're also more interested in purchasing items that improve your appearance. This could be makeup, hair services, clothing, shoes, anything that makes you physically more attractive. And again, researchers believe this is because you're trying to edge out any romantic rivals. During this time, this phase of your cycle, you're also, this high and rising estrogen is pushing you to break out of ruts. It's pushing you to experiment, to try new things. And one way to do that is to purchase new things. Hair serum that has a new type of ingredient that does something really great, or zip lining down a mountain. I mean, your high estrogen really wants you to try something new, whether it's an ingredient, a product, a service, an experience. So you're more likely to splash out a lot of cash on these kinds of things, concert tickets, things that give you a thrill. Okay, so that's why you're spending more in the first half of your cycle. There's just a lot going on, right? There's a lot of reasons why your hormones push you to spend. Well, let's go to the second half of your cycle, the day after ovulation through the day before your next period. And I laugh because, like so many things in your cycle, the second half of your cycle seems like so much different from the first half, almost the opposite. And so I know what's coming ahead. So I'm laughing because it's just so different. Okay, so the second half of your cycle, the day after ovulation through the day before your next period. During these days, estrogen starts out by dropping steeply, then it rises, and then it drops again. We also have progesterone on the scene. So at ovulation, progesterone is rising. In the middle of this second half of your cycle, it starts to fall in your premenstrual phase. But generally speaking, progesterone is elevated during the second half of your cycle, and estrogen is lower during the second half of your cycle. So that's generally speaking. So that's why progesterone tends to dominate the second half of your cycle. And here's what happens when it does. During the second half of your cycle, so during the first half, you were, blowing wads of cash, mainly on yourself, mainly on things that made you look better and experience the world. Well, the second half, you're worried about money. You want to conserve your money. You want to conserve your cash. You have more anxiety about how you're going to pay bills you already have or bills that are coming down the pike. And the reason for that is that lower estrogen, which takes away your confidence, and elevated progesterone. Now, progesterone is it's a hormone that makes you want to play it safe. It triggers caution. It's basically like waving yellow flag, like slow down. Because researchers believe it's because you're at this point in the second half of your cycle, your body thinks there's a possibility you may have gotten pregnant during ovulation. And if that's the case, they want you to, your hormones, I refer to them as if they're actual individual beings. We're on a first name basis, me and estrogen and progesterone. In any case, progesterone, if your body thinks it could be pregnant, progesterone wants you to conserve your resources in case you need them during a pregnancy. So generally speaking, you're looking to save. You're scared about spending. Now, I say generally like 1,000 times because there are some exceptions. The research shows that you are more willing to splash out cash during the second half of your cycle on a few specific things. One of them is food. If you see food you like, you really don't care how much it costs. You're going to get it. You're also spending more on food in general. And this is because elevated progesterone revs your appetite, revs cravings, makes you want comforting foods. So it makes sense that your desire for food outweighs your desire to save money. It really eclipses it. It's very interesting how they work. So another thing that you're more willing to spend money on during the second half of your cycle is home goods, like Um, Items that spruce up your environment, that make it prettier or more comfortable. Again, it's because your body thinks you're pregnant, so it wants you to feather your nest in case you got pregnant so that you're more comfortable during a pregnancy. Another thing, this is the part that I find really interesting about the research. Um, Another thing that you're more willing to splash out on during the second half of your cycle are gifts for loved ones, gifts for friends and family. Now, I think this is fascinating. The research shows that if you, say, go into a bookstore and you see a book for yourself, maybe it's a new novel by your favorite author. If you're in the second half of your cycle, you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't get this for myself. I have this, rent payment due, or this mortgage payment due, or this car payment due. I'll wait until my next paycheck. But if you see a book for a loved one, a friend or family member, and it's more expensive, you are more likely to buy that book for them. Isn't that funny? It turns out that our hormones push us to to spend more on other people, specifically close to us, those who are close to us, during the second half of our cycle. Researchers suspect it's probably because, we want to build closer ties with these individuals. They're already close to us, but we may have this hormonal push to strengthen ties even more through these gifts because, again, our body thinks we may be pregnant, and if we are, we may need their extra support during this pregnancy, so we shower them with gifts that are more expensive than we would buy for ourselves, which is really interesting to me. Okay, so there's one other thing that you're more likely to splurge on during the second half of your cycle, despite the fact that you generally save, and that is, I think this is also really interesting, um, donations to causes, good causes. Now, I would have thought that maybe donations to good causes go up during the second half of your cycle because progesterone makes you more caring, more mothering, more nurturing. No. The researchers think that we spend more on donations as something that we now call virtue signaling, where we want other people to know how good we are, what good people we are, like how noble we are. Because, again, if we got pregnant and we need the support of others, we want them to think that we're good enough to share their resources with too. And one way is by showing them that we support good causes, that we're so generous to others as well. And of course, the way they would find that out is by us posting it on Facebook or casually or not so casually inserting it into conversation. And then they would know, oh, we're such great people. Okay, so that's what's going on with the first half of your cycle and the second half. First half, you're spending a lot. It's mostly on yourself, how to boost appearance, have experiences, try new things. Second half, really conserving your money. You're trying your best to keep the cash you have, but what you do splurge on is food, home goods, presents for friends, and donations to charities. So let's just quickly go back to the beginning when I said this is why it's so important to know why and how your hormones are impacting how you spend and what you're spending on, so that you can take advantage of them or override these effects. By taking advantage of them, one way is by cycle syncing, timing your favorite shopping days, going to your favorite stores to splurge during the first half of your cycle when spending isn't painful. In fact, it's rewarding, it's fun, it's exciting. You don't care about the price tags. And another way is by overriding these hormonal effects when you need to. For instance, as I've mentioned before, during the second half of your cycle, when you want to conserve money, when you're worried about spending money, you might stop yourself from spending money when you really should spend money. Oh, for instance, I know somebody who bought a very expensive phone, but didn't want to pop for the case, for an otter case or something to protect it. Phone, 1 week after they got it, dropped, of course, and broke. The screen broke. So she was in the second half of her cycle, and she was thinking, well, I've already spent all this money. I don't want to spend another $30, $40, $50, whatever it was. And that was a mistake. So if you're in the second half of your cycle and you need to make a money decision that can have a payoff, a greater payoff in the end, you could say, okay, look, my hormones are telling me don't spend, but if I follow the dots, spending now will save me money later. So I've given you a great overview of how your hormones impact your spending and saving. There's something else I wanted to add. This is specifically for those of you who are in the sales and service industries, or for those who know people who are in the sales and service industries. I have taken this information about how hormones impact our spending habits, and I've developed a method for people in the sales and service industry to provide better sales and service experiences to women who are shopping, women with cycles ages 18 to 45. I call it the phase matcher approach. And simply put, basically you're matching the phase your client is in. And you're using easy clues to find out which phase she's in. Meaning, if you notice her energy is up, she's smiling a lot, she's joking a lot, chances are she's in the first half of her cycle. If her energy is lower, she's talking in a more monotone way, she's talking more slowly, she's probably in the second half of her cycle. Now, the great thing is once you realize which phase your client is in, you can give her a better sales and shopping experience. And I would love to speak with everybody about this who's in the sales and service industries, because selfishly, I want a better sales and service experience. I came up with the phase matcher approach because I was so frustrated when I would go shopping, or I'd have a service, some kind of service call, say I had a contractor over and they weren't matching my phase. It was frustrating for me. I was like, I really wish I could just wear a button that said week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, or just the first half of my cycle, second half of my cycle, so that they could match me. I remember once I was in the second half of my cycle and I was really low key and I just wanted a real hands-off approach. The contractor came over and was talking a million miles a minute. He was in my space, my personal space. He was making a million jokes. He was like taking up all my time, and I was already low energy. So every minute he'd stayed and talked and talked and talked, my energy came lower and lower. What I wanted during that phase of my cycle was just the nuts and bolts of what needed to be done. Just, bottom line this for me. Similarly, I remember shopping in the first half of my cycle and going to a store in the mall, and the woman just picked up on what I needed. I was high energy. I wanted a fun, interactive experience. I wanted to be fawned over. I wanted attention. This was the first half of my cycle. I wanted this to be a fun, interactive experience, and she gave it to me. And you know what happened? I ended up spending twice as much as I planned to. And I was fine with it. I was happy with it. Not only that, actually, true story. I came home right after that experience and I wrote a letter to that store's corporate office. And I lauded this woman. I gave her so many compliments. I said, this woman should be training everybody. She gave me such a great experience. This was exactly what I wanted. Compare that to when I went back to the mall for another, I had to get shoes for work, and it was the second half of my cycle, and the shoe saleswoman just wasn't understanding that I wanted a hands-off approach, just like with the contractor, and it was very frustrating. I left with nothing because I just couldn't take her constant yammering and the constant, too much attention. So this is what I mean when I say that people in the sales and service industries can match the phases of a client and make her experience so much better, and she will end up spending more and loving it. So if you're in the sales and service industries, I do give consultations. I give one-on-one consultations. I do consultations for whole sales teams. I can do it in person, and I can do it via video chat. And I have a very easy to follow e-guide that I can give you as well during our consultation. So hit me up, Gabrielle at myhormonology.com. Let's schedule a consultation because I want everyone in the sales and service industries to have this information to help make their clients' experience so much better. Um, selfishly, and this works. If you're in realty, you're in the hairstyling industry, if you're in a salon, if you're in a spa, selling clothing, you own a store. If you have a large clientele that's ages 18 to 45 and have menstrual cycles, well, I can help you help them, which then helps you. So email me. Let's schedule a consultation, Gabrielle at myhormonology.com. Everybody else, I hope you enjoyed learning how hormones impact your spending and saving behavior and how you could use that information to make every day of your cycle better, because that's the goal. If you need any information, please go to my website, myhormonology.com. If you have any questions, email me, Gabrielle at myhormonology.com. This has been great. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time.